today is Keshwar Pandit's Parents' Day, so we're going to talk about him and his relationship with Lord Chaitanya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava Girvanidhari Navalava Girvanidhari Gopi Janavalava Girvanidhari Yasodanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Nana Vrajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajagana Jana Na Vrajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalava Girivanidhari Janavalava Girivanidhari Gopi Janavalava Girivanidhari Girivanidhari Yasodanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Nandana Vrajagana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajagana Ranjana Nandana Vrajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Om Vaishnavanda Ki. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri ISKCON founder Srila Prabhupada Ki. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kon Radha Kon Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mayapur Dham Ki. Navadvip Dham Ki. Jamuna Mahi Ki, Ganga Mahi Ki, Tulsi Devi Ki, Bhakta Devi Ki, Shri Radha Golokananda Ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so Rakeshwar Pandit. So it's kind of interesting here. The very first, Rakeshwar Pandit is the fourth member of the Chakravyuha, Aniruddha. He brought happiness to the Lord by dancing in the mood of Krishna. He would sweetly say to Mahaprabhu, "O merciful Lord, give me 1,000 singers so that I can dance." Radha's dear Saki, Sashrika, also entered into him. That's according to the Gora Ganodesa Dikpaka. Now that's for Krishna Pandit being the fourth member of the Chakravyuha. That's a Chakravyuha's expansion of Lord Balaram. You have Sankar, you had Vasudeva, all Vishnu, forms of Vishnu, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and then Aniruddha. Now Aniruddha is Kshirodakshai Vishnu, lying in the milk ocean. Pradyumna is Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and he's the super soul of the entire universe. He's lying down, and from his navel sprouts the lotus flower, which Balaram sits on. And then Sankarshan is Kshirodakshai Vishnu. No, Karnadakshai Vishnu, who lies on the Karnadakshai ocean, which all the different universes emanate from him. That's the second Chakra expansion. The first expansion are all the Vaikuntha planets and all the Vishnu forms in Vaikuntha. So there's two expansions of Chakravyuha. So, and so respectively there. Of course, Mahaprabhu also described himself as lying on the milk ocean, which is Kshirodakshai Vishnu. And Nada called him to come and deliver the fallen souls and spread Krishna consciousness. So he's the embodiment of Aniruddha, which is Kshirodakshai Vishnu, and one of Radha's Shakis, Sashrishika. So, continuing on, Sri Vakeshwar Pandit revealed such great potency that he danced nonstop for 3 days. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes the following summary of Vakeshwar Pandit. Vakeshwar Pandit is the Lord's dear servant who danced without rest for 72 hours. One day Mahaprabhu was singing and dancing himself, and Vakeshwar Pandit fell down at his feet and said, "O moon-faced Lord, give me 10,000 Gandharvas. It will make me happy if I can dance as they sing." The Lord answered, "I have only one wing like you. If I had another, I could fly in the sky." Vakeshwar Pandit and Devananda Pandit. Vakeshwar was also present in the kirtans at the houses of Srivas and Chandrasekhar, where he would dance ecstatically. Vakeshwar was so dear to Mahaprabhu that Devananda Pandit was freed from his offenses to Srivas Pandit and received Mahaprabhu's mercy through serving him. In answer to a Brahmin's question, Mahaprabhu explained how to atone for offenses to the Vaishnavas. So we're going to read that story. And of course, Devananda Pandit, he's the one that taught Srimad Bhagavatam in Mayavad. And so and we know that Srivas Thakur would go and listen to him. Sometimes Mukunda would go listen to him. But Srivas Pandit, when he heard him, he thought about Krishna. And he started exhibiting ecstatic forms of crying. And of course, some of it, Devananda Pandit's students didn't understand that. So so his students removed him from that assembly. And Devananda Pandit didn't object. He should have objected to that, but didn't because of that offense. Lord Chaitanya really was upset. And even in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, when he was walking around, he eventually sees Devananda Pandit. He really chastises him heavily for that offense. So by the mercy of the devotee, Rakeshwar Pandit, he later gets, redeemed. These are the mercy. So now we're going to talk about the Brahman's curse of Lord Chaitanya. How do you get relieved? Because so many offenses we commit, and we've committed in our practice, and sometimes we don't even know that we've committed offenses against people, so we've accumulated. And sometimes, where are those people now? Right? So this is what happened with Jughai and Mudhai. They approached Nityananda, and they said, we've committed so many offenses to so many people. We don't even know who they are. Obviously they're drunken, they're stupid, and they're intoxicated. They did so many things. So Nityananda said that advised them to build a god and serve the Vaishnavas. That's how you redeem yourself, through the service of the Vaishnavas. Okay, so listen, Brahmin. If you want to be cured after consuming poison, you must ingest ambrosia, the very same mouth you took the poison. That way, not only will the poison be digested, but your body will become immortal through the ambrosia's divine power. Now let me answer your question. Whatever blasphemies you have unknowingly made are exactly like poison that you have eaten. Now you must use the same mouth to constantly glorify Krishna's name and qualities, which are like ambrosia. You have used your tongue to insult the devotees. Now use it to glorify them. Glorifying the devotees in songs and poetry is the best of humanity. I will destroy all the poison of blasphemy through the ambrosial ecstasies of Krishna's glories. Everyone has unknowingly committed offenses. This is the truth. If you should stop all kinds of offenses, you should stop all kinds of offensive activity and simply engage in praising Krishna and his devotees. Then you will be free from all the sins you have committed, however numerous they may be. You will not be able to achieve the same results through millions of atonements. So, very good. That's from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. That's in the Anchalita 3, text 449 to 458. So he's telling him that he could compose songs and poetry glorifying the Lord. And we have a whole book of poetry by the Vaishnavas that follow that sentiment. And then we should also, to the best of our ability, always glorify the devotees. Now Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur comments, an offensive person will only attain the ultimate good by using the tongue with which he has made his blasphemous comments, to acknowledge his offense and then glorify Krishna and his devotees. If you take poison, it will disrupt the body's functioning. But if you can remedy the situation by taking a medicine that destroys its effects, similarly, the way to become free from the effects of Vaishnava Nida is to first of all stop poisonous activity. Then, rather than performing thousands of other ineffective atonement rituals, one should glorify the Vaishnavas. And there's all kinds of austerities and all kinds of activities one can perform. Giving charity, just fasting. There's unlimited things. None of them, but will solve the problem. Through serving the devotee, Kulia's Devananda Pandit became a believer in Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. This good fortune visited him when Vakeshwari came to stay at his house. Devananda was a follower of the Smarta path, but was nevertheless a great scholar and very austere. He read no scripture other than Bhagavatam. He was devoted to the Supreme Lord and was freed from the domination of his senses. Nevertheless, he was not a believer in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By Prakeshwar's mercy, this foolish misunderstanding was dispelled as he developed faith in the Lord. The Gaudiya Vaishya, and this is also from the Chaitanya Bhagavat, same chapter, and this is later, 453 to 481. Prakeshwar Pandit was very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone who remembers him will purify the entire creation. He is the embodiment of Krishna Prem, and both gods and demons are enchanted by his dancing. So we see here as an example of glorifying, this is Vrindavan Das Thakur, glorifying Prakeshwar Pandit, just practical application himself. What he's prescribing for everybody else, he's also doing. This is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Mahaprabhu himself described Prakeshwar's glories to Devananda Pandit. The Lord said, "You have served Prakeshwar and thus come into my presence." Prakeshwar Pandit is the Lord's complete energy. So whoever pays homage to him attains Krishna. Krishna has made his home in Prakeshwar's heart. Krishna dances in order to make Prakeshwar dance. If any place becomes associated with Prakeshwar, it immediately becomes the equivalent of Vaikuntha and equal to all holy places. So right from the very beginning, we described that Prakeshwar Pandit is the fourth quadruple Chakravyuha Aniruddha. So here explains it how his dance is the energy of the Supreme Lord. So, after Mahaprabhu had absolved Devananda Pandit of his offenses, he affectionately gave him many instructions. Those vain egoists who are proud of their scholarship could not understand the meaning of Bhagavatam. That is the prerogative of the surrendered devotees. The Saranagat. The word Bhagavat can refer to either the holy scripture that describes the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, or the devotees of Bhagavan. The only object of the scriptural Bhagavatam is to elucidate pure devotional. So it is not different from the pure devotee who speaks from the Bhagavatam. With his knowledge will attain the supreme auspiciousness. One who speaks from Bhagavatam with this knowledge will attain the supreme auspiciousness. One who thinks, I understand Bhagavatam, does not really know the Bhagavatam's central meaning. On the other hand, an ignorant person who takes shelter of the Bhagavatam will directly perceive its meaning. The Bhagavatam is pure love. It is the incarnation of Krishna himself. It recounts Krishna's most intimate activities. After recounting the Vedas and the Puranas, Vedavyas felt unsatisfied. But as soon as the Bhagavatam manifested on his tongue, his mind was immediately satisfied. That's also from Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's Vrindavan Das Thakur. So Gopal, Guru Goswami, when Prakeshwar came to live in Puri, he would accompany. There were many Goswamis that lived in Vrindavan. We have prominently 6 of them, but they're actually in the book. I can't even think of the name of it right now. It's the later pastimes after the Lord left, and those pastimes were Shivananda Sain, Jiva Goswami, and all those pastimes. The pastimes of Jahnavi doing the kirtans. I'm trying to think of the name of that book. What it? I don't know, possibly. So in that book, describes, they list a whole bunch of these Goswamis, these different Goswamis that live there, all pure devotees of the Lord, all followers of Rupa and Raghunath, and then later Jiva Goswami became the Acharya of that assembly. When Prakeshwar Pandit came to live in Puri, he would accompany Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya and other devotees to Tota Gopinath to hear Gadadhar Pandit give discourses on the Bhagavatam. One should hear the book Bhagavatam from the devotee Bhagavatam. Gopal Guru Goswami, whose previous name was Makar Advij Pandit, was Vaikeshwar Pandit's disciple. In his childhood, Gopal Guru personally served Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is said that he also displayed extraordinary powers. When Abhiram Thakur came to pay him obeisances, Mahaprabhu took Gopal on his lap to protect him. Mahaprabhu gave Gopal the name Guru because he instructed people to chant Krishna's names in all circumstances, whether pure or impure. Before leaving his body, Gopal Guru turned over the service of his Radhakanta deity to his disciple Dayananda Chandra Goswami. After his death, then Gopal Guru's body was taken to the Svarga Dwar to be cremated. Some representatives of the king came and closed the Radhakanta mat. Dayananda Chandra was so distressed that he began to cry aloud. Gopal Guru arose from the funeral pyre and returned to Radhakanta's temple and resolved the problem before going back into the crematorium. Wow. Even after that, however, Gopal Gurus appeared in Vrindavan, where devotees were amazed to witness him engage in his devotions. A murti of Gopal Guru is still worshipped at the Radhakanta Mat. Many people in Orissa are initiated in Vaikeshwar Pandit's line and consider themselves to be Gaudiya Vaishnavas. During the Rath Yasha and Puri, Vaikeshwar was the chief dancer in the fourth Kirtan Sampradaya, whose lead singer was Govinda Ghosh. He's sometimes described as a branch of the Chaitanya, or alternatively as a branch of Gadadhar Pandit. Vaikeshwar's disappearance day was on the 6th day of the waxing moon, Sukla, in the month of Ashwara. I don't know what month that is. So that's Vaikeshwar Pandit. Obviously a very exalted Vaishnava. We're so lucky to have him. Obviously very dear to Lord Chaitanya. Anybody got any comments or questions or Vaikeshwar Pandit? Anything we want to add? I didn't think we had more to offer. So we'll do Chaitanya Charitam, Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from 10th canto, chapter 29, chapter 45, text 29. I'll get it right in a minute. I'll get settled here. Tatas cha labha samskaru tatas cha labha samskaro Dvijatvam prapya suvartu Dvijatvam prapya Dvijatvam prapya suvarta Gargad Yadu Kulacharyad Gargad Yadu Kularchayad Gayatram Vartram Asishtu Tatash Chalabhya Samskaro Vijatvam Prajastu Vartya Gargadyatu Kulacharyad Gayatram Vratram Astito Tatascha Labha Samskaro Vijatvam Praptyastu Vartya Gargadyatu Kulacharyad Gayatram Vartram Astitau. Okay. Tashchalabjam Samskarya. Tataschalabhyam samskara Dvijatam praptyastu varta Gardajada kularchaya Garyatram vratamastaya. Wow, thank you. Tata, then. Cha, and. Labha, having received. Samskara, initiation. Krishna and Balaram. Vijatam, twice-born status. Prapya, attaining. Suvrata, sincere in their vows. Gargat, from Gargamuni. From Gargamuni. Yadu Kula, of the Yadu dynasty. Acharyat, from the spiritual master. Gayatram, of celibacy. Pratam, the vow. Ashita, assumed. Translation. After attaining twice-born status through initiation, the Lords sincere in their vows took the further vow of celibacy from Gargamuni, the spiritual master of the Yadus. So please repeat. After attaining twice-born status through initiation, the Lords, sincere in their vows, took the vow of celibacy from Gargamuni, the spiritual master of the Yadus. So purport. Both Sridhar Swami and Vishwanath Chakravarti explain the term Gayatram Vatram as a vow of brahmachari, or celibacy in student life. Krishna and Balaram were playing the part of perfect students on the path of self-realization. Of course, in modern degraded age, student life has become a wild, animalistic affair filled with illicit sex and drugs. So, Om Aganda Timarandasya, Gananjana Shalakaya, Chakshur Omaditamnina Taismai Shri Gurve Namaha. Of course, huge contrast between that school and the school we have. So, and that's religious, all religious schools tend to be very conservative in dealing with the children and try to not allow this type of activity to go on. I don't know how much preaching nowadays. This is like Hrinanda Goswami mentioned this. He wrote this like 40 years ago. And so today, sometimes people want to tone it down a little bit, not really attack people. But, that's the way Prabhupada was. He's just repeating Prabhupada in a sense. That was the mission, and that's the way they preached. It was a cat and dog society that the society is made up of. And that's what we're breeding. People don't really understand it now. You have to be tolerant, and everybody's, whatever they do, whatever they think, whatever they feel is supposed to be tolerated now. You're not supposed to say anything, and point out. But that's not the proper way to help a person, is to enable their mentality of sinful activity. You have to contrast it, and that's Jeev Jago. You have to somehow wake a person up. So then there's a discussion on what's the best process on how to do that. And that sometimes changes from time to time. But ultimately, effective preachers become good at that. But at the end of the day, the best way to preach is by setting the example. That's the utmost best preaching that one can do. First, heal thyself to a certain degree. Then you can heal others and bring them to the whatever level that you're on. Now, there's not a lot of commentaries, but this thing about a brahmachari is kind of interesting, and we'll read through here. Jiva Goswami, kind of very short here. Of course, Vishwanath just repeats the fact that Krishna and Balaram began to practice brahmachari. Of course, Krishna was in Vrindavan doing the Rasa Leela and with the gopis, and so now he's come here and he's going to school and he's going to be perform specific things that are necessary at that time. So Jiva Goswami, Garga instructed them on the brahmachari vow. So before they went to school, they got initiated. He gave them some instructions that goes along with it. This is the process. This is what you do. Everybody gets that nowadays. Of course, now in ISKCON, you got other things they add to it, as far as, faithfulness to Prabhupada and these other things. That in some of these initiations, you hear this whole, it's a banded process. So he instructed them on the brahmachari vow. He taught the boys about Gayatri, Satpitra, Prajapati, and brahmachari vows. The Gayatri vow means 3 times a day of study. So we chant the Gayatri mantra 3 times a day, but, Gayatra vow means 3 days of study. Okay, so Prajapati means brahmachari vows for 1 year. The beginning of studying the Vedas. Brahma means vows until the Vedas are completely studied. Sridhar Swami says that in this case, the word Gayatra simply means general observance of brahmachari. And that's what Priyananda Goswami brought out in his commentary, just that general observance. So they were fixed in their vows, Suvratau. Suvratau, this is Sanat Goswami, Suvratau means they followed procedures described in Tantra. They accepted the vow of giving everything. Garga instructed them on the brahmachari vow. He taught the boys about Gayatra, that's what we just read. And I'm not going to read it anymore because it's pretty much the same thing. Typically, Jiva Goswami redid Sanat Goswami's commentaries, and we see often that, and then Priyananda Goswami pretty much did the same a lot. He just translated the commentaries, and that's what we read. So oftentimes we find ourselves, we could be reading this 3 times, it's the same thing. So these verses here, they're very short. Of course, the one that was done the day before yesterday was super long, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So we're going to, this, going to the school, I was in the Gopal Champu. I'll share with you some things. So they took this initiation. They took these vows. They got instructed on how to be a brahmachari for a year, what to do, So in the Gopal Champu, it talks about how they were dressed when they showed up at Sandamani Puni school. So I'm going to share that with you here. And if we have any questions or anything, we can talk about that. If not, we can move on. But so this is on, I wrote the page number here, but the chapter, this is where they go to Sandamani school in Gopal Champu. So it's described as they were wearing 2 pieces of silk cloth, kusha rings, grass, kusha is the grass, sacred threads, grass belts made of more of a deer skin, and holding Kadira staffs. I think there's a painting of that. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking maybe Nar and Narayan, but I think there is a painting of them in this right here. Krishna and Balaram, endowed with auspicious natures, entered the assembly of the Guru as true brahmacharis endowed with Kshatriya aura. So they were Kshatriyas. Okay, so obviously it's a different varna. And so often you can recognize they're recognizable in that. And I'm sure their reputation preceded them. I mean, it preceded them before they went to Vrindavan. They heard about Krishna. They were anticipating him coming. When he entered Vrindavan and he entered the assembly, they knew to a certain degree what they were anticipating anxiously. Okay, so Krishna from of Sandipani, resplendent with thousands of Brahmins, like the sun and moon entering the sky with Jupiter, which means the Guru and the stars. So they went to school together with Brahmins and Kshatriyas. They all went to school together. Both were considered twice born. Now, the symptoms of being kings, the members did not rise up. The assembly there, the Brahmins that were sitting there, did not rise up. That seemed to be proper because in front of the great persons inferiors should not be elevated status. So the Brahmins, being the higher caste, did not stand up when Krishna and Balaram entered. So they're saying that that's appropriate to a certain degree. Though their bodies did not offer respect because of their pride, as Brahmins, the beauty of the two boys becoming warm melted their hearts. So this obviously was enchanting. Seeing the two boys, Sandimani, I'm skipping forward here a little bit. Seeing these boys, my heart develops affection. I can clearly conclude that since the birth, they have lived on butter and other soft substances, or in affectionate conditions, and thus internally and externally are oozing with affection. So he was able to recognize, they were Kshatriyas, but their bodily condition was like not those of someone who really buffed out, had all abs. And you see a lot of times, even on the internet, there's a lot of pictures and paintings of Krishna, and they have these showing of his super muscular and super, which is not what Krishna looked like. He wasn't, and plus, not to mention, he looked like someone like 25, 30, or 40 years old in that condition. It's just a misinterpretation. And that's kind of important because when people are painting these, we're not talking about even paintings in ISKCON. We're just talking about there's a lot of paintings. There's a lot of modern type art that's out there that's depicting. And of course, in the work that I'm doing now, I'm always looking at pictures, and so I see a whole lot of this stuff. And even on YouTube, there's these little small clips and stuff that really, some of it's really pretty good. There's this one person, I don't even know if he's a devotee or not, but he puts these little small clips about temples. He takes all these little pictures, videos of temples and these carvings on temples, and he starts pointing out details of these, what they're holding in their hand, what's on their feet, on the way they're dressed. It's kind of interesting. These are some temples are thousands of years old. So the point I'm trying to get to is that Prabhupada explained exactly how to paint pictures. So the Acharya understands because of Scripture. They've read Scripture. They know because Krishna's described in there, like here is described, that Sandimani and Puri picked up on the fact that these guys were, they lived off of milk sweets. They're young boys. They're just showing up. And so there's these other descriptions of Krishna in here. And so based on who are well-versed in these literatures, they're able to describe how to paint Krishna, how to paint Radharani, how to paint the cowherd boys and all those associated. And it's a good lesson as far as even practicing Krishna consciousness, why it's so important that we accept the authorities and also accept those who acharyas and the spiritual master, because they help us formulate the proper opinion on how Krishna appeared, how he acted, how we should conduct ourselves with him, how we should approach him, and how we should conduct ourselves with each other. So that is very important, a lesson. Oftentimes, these paintings and these depictions are just people who are speculating a little bit. It's an art. Maybe they're expressing their own emotions, but if it's somewhat spewed or contaminated, they haven't been trained up properly. Then what comes out is going to be different because of that lack of proper training. Now it's interesting. All these 64 art things that they learned very quickly, they were taught. I mean, I was doing a quick count of these, and most of them deal with art. Almost like 56 or 57 of these 64 are all somehow art related. Playing musical instruments, dancing, drama. This is what they learned when they're at the school. And coloring one's teeth, how to make varieties of salad, bread, and cake, putting on apparel in a dressing room, decorating the earlobe, applying aromatics, decorating with jewelry. This is what they learned in school. Mixing colors, coloring one's teeth, clothes, and limbs. Making a bed of flowers, needlework and weaving. Of course, this will be discussed later. Making and solving riddles. Uttering statements difficult for others to answer, like speaking in code. Of course, now reciting books, that's not in the art, but enacting short plays, with anecdotes. So, like they were so many spinning with a spindle, also carpentry, architecture, dealing with metallurgy, and testing silver and jewels, tinging jewels with various colors, and mineralogy, medical and medicine, healing, hairdressing. Of course, all those dealt with art. How to build toy carts with flowers, composing verses. So also work with medical, learning some medical remedies, building shrines. And so this way they're playing with children's toys. That's number 61. So a lot of what they learned was art. A great deal of this, almost overwhelming majority, all of it was some way related to art. And art, I mean, that's a personal thing. People express art personally. Even if you was to say someone who painted a picture of Krishna and it was described as inappropriate, to critique that to that person or maybe criticize it, they would be offended by it. Unless you were really close to that person and had friendship with that person, that you could speak openly and frankly. Art is something that's very personal that comes out in each individual, in some particular way. Addressing the deities it's an art. There's all types of art form. So if you criticize someone's dressing the deities, then the person would get not too happy about it. The way they did it. An art is like that. It's sometimes subjective to the person. Of course, nowadays, art could be anything. We talked about how offensive people are in expressing themselves, that anything can be considered art. But here we know that there's certain things that is art and how it should be expressed properly. So they were taught that. Not anything goes art. That's a completely different type of mentality. So that's pretty much it. Any other comments? I think we're about ready to see the deities. Short. Thank God we have Lord Chaitanya, who really the touchstone of love of Godhead is described. That was his wealth, and he had a storehouse that he opened up for anybody to take. His wealth was chanting the Hare Krishna, and that he gave